What if I told you the clean-cut, all-American pop star who sang Jesse's Girl and charmed millions as Dr. Noah Drake on General Hospital killed a man? Not in a movie or a song, but in real life with his bare hands and a rifle. To top it all off, he kept the secret for 40 years while smiling for teen magazines, only to confess all of it in his autobiography. Here's how Jesse's Girl was almost sung by a man haunted by a jungle execution.
Like, subscribe. Thank you.
His name was Richard Springthorpe, but the world would know him as Rick Springfield. In 1981, he was on top of the world. He had two jobs that most people would kill for. By day, he was Dr. Noah Drake on General Hospital, the handsome doctor that had housewives tuning in by the millions. His storyline, a romance with the nurse, Bobby Spencer, was a national obsession. The show's ratings were through the roof, and was almost entirely because of him. By night, he was a rock star. His album, Working Class Dog, was flying off the shelves, and it had one song that was absolutely inescapable, Jesse's Girl. It was the perfect pop-punk anthem of jealousy and longing. It was catchy, relatable, and it rocketed to #1, eventually nabbing him a Grammy. Rick Springfield was the ultimate teen idol, the safe, handsome rocker you could bring home to mom. His face was on lunchboxes, Tiger Beat magazines, bedroom walls across America. But underneath that facade, he was hiding this darkness that was anything but safe. He had a secret he'd been carrying since he was 20 years old. A secret from a hot, humid jungle in Vietnam. And to understand it, you have to go back to 1968. Rick wasn't a solo star. He was a kid in a popular Australian band called Zoot. He was the pensive guitarist. Zoot was a huge local sensation. Australia's answer to the bubblegum pop and glam rock happening in the UK. But they had a gimmick, one they all hated. The management forced them to dress head to toe in pink. They were the Think Pink band. It was a marketing ploy that got them noticed, but it also made them a punchline. Imagine a band dressed in bright pink trying to be taken as seriously as possible as musicians. It was this bizarre, candy-coated image that made what happened next even more surreal. Like many bands at the time, Zoot got an offer to do a tour in Vietnam. It was a goodwill tour in 1969 meant to entertain the Australian troops stationed there during the war. Rick, just 20, thought it sounded like an adventure, a way to escape the Think Pink absurdity, but it was anything but. The second they landed, the fantasy evaporated. He later said the heat and humidity were so bad it was like breathing in hot soup. The tension was everywhere. They were not in a safe bubble, but more of a war zone. They're flying in helicopters over jungles that were actively being bombed. They hear gunfire in the distance while trying to play pop songs. The soldiers were kids, just like them, but they were aged by the stress and the horror of combat all the time. It was a brutal dose of reality. And the incident happened at an Australian base in Long Bin. The band was hanging out, trying to relax after a show when all hell broke loose. A Viet Cong soldier had somehow infiltrated the base and was setting up explosives, reportedly planting a mine near the ammo dump. If it went off, it would have taken out a huge chunk of the base, including the band. Guards started shouting, flares were shooting up in the sky, lighting the whole place up like a twisted Christmas. Now, Rick and his bandmates saw the soldier making a run for the wire fence. He was close. Another guard, a friend of the band, was closer. He leveled his rifle. Rick was right there. It said he and the guard both did what they had to do and attacked the man. In his 2010 autobiography, Late at Night, Springfield finally came clean about what happened next. He wasn't just watching, he also participated. He described the primal, sickening moment of the attack, the sounds and the feeling. He wrote that the soldier was asshole deep in the mud and that he and the guard ended him. And it wasn't a clean, heroic movie scene. It was brutal, messy, and personal. Soldier was gone, and in that second, Rick Springfield, the pop rock kid in his pink suit, became a killer. In his mind, anyway. The base commander, knowing a civilian entertainer killing someone was a legal nightmare, allegedly told them all to just shut up. He saw nothing, he ordered. A guard shot him. That's the end of the story. And just like that, it was over. The secret was buried. The band made a pact of silence, never spoke about it again. The next day, they were playing Eleanor Rigby for another set of soldiers, acting like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Rick was already carrying a heavy burden. He'd been fighting some deep, mind-numbing emotional shit since he was a teen. He called it Mr. D, the darkness, an unwanted guest who lived in his head. He was a military brat. His dad was a lieutenant colonel in the Australian Army. The family was moving constantly from England to Australia, all over. Rick was always the new kid, always an outsider, and it hit him hard. A year before Vietnam, at 17, he tried doing the unthinkable. Let's say it involved a rope and a beam in his backyard. but he was saved because the rope snapped. He survived, but the darkness never left. He went back to school the next day, and he said no one even noticed the burns that were around his neck. And now Vietnam had given that darkness a face or physical memory. He had this new horrific secret to lock away with all the others. He knew he had to get the hell out of Australia. So he fled to America in 1972 trying to start over, trying to make it in music and trying to outrun the ghosts. The first few years in America were a disaster. He signed a record deal with Capitol Records, who saw his teen idol looks and tried to market him as the next David Cassidy. His first album, Beginnings, was released, and the single Speak to the Sky actually charted. It was a hollow victory. He hated the bubblegum image. He felt it was Zoot all over again. And then label politics and band management kicked in. The album died, and he was stuck in legal hell, unable to record or tour for years. He was broke, down in the dumps, and failing. He was so desperate for work that he started taking acting classes. It was a last-ditch effort. And that's how he landed the audition for General Hospital. He hated the idea. He was a rock star, a serious musician. Doing a soap opera was the definition of selling out. But he was out of options. He took the job, assuming it would be the final nail in his musical coffin. But he was wrong. It was actually the fuse. Right as he started appearing on TV in 1981, he was finishing his new album, Working Class Dog. He had a new deal with RCA, and he had a song he'd been working on, a riff he'd been kicking around. The inspiration was real. He was in a stained glass making class, and a friend of his, Gary Govich, would bring his new girlfriend. Rick immediately developed a massive crush on her. He was actually consumed with jealousy. He wanted to know her, but he couldn't, because she was with his friend. He didn't even know her name, and he was too afraid to ask. So in the song, he just called her Jesse's girl. He wrote the whole thing in his car and in the shower, channeling all that nervous, adolescent longing and frustration right into the music. It was perfect. The label released it, and suddenly Rick Springfield was everywhere. General Hospital and MTV created this perfect storm of exposure. And this is the central irony in his life and career. In 1981, millions of people were falling in love with Dr. Noah Drake, the charming, sensitive doctor, and they were simultaneously blasting Jesse's Girl from their car stereos, singing along to this anthem of harmless teen jealousy. And the man at the center of it all was a wreck, living on a diet of sugar, coffee, and no sleep. He'd film the soap opera for 10 to 12 hours, then go straight to the studio to record all night, then drive home as the sun was coming up to catch an hour of sleep before going back to the TV set again. He was in a state of perpetual exhaustion, smiling on camera, but privately, he was battling some serious demons, and he was harboring the 12-year-old secret about killing that man in the muddy field. The fame, he said, just made it all worse. It was like an out-of-body experience. He felt like a complete fraud, a hollow man. The adulation was not for him. It was for this fake persona, this clean-cut idol. And the success of Jesse's Girl became its own kind of prison. It was so big, it overshadowed everything else he did. He had other hits, massive ones. Don't Talk to Strangers, Love Somebody, Human Touch. His follow-up albums, Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet, Living in Oz, were both platinum sellers. But he was no one-hit wonder. But it didn't matter. In the public's mind, he was and always will be the Jesse's Girl guy. That song, born from a simple crush, became a curse. It was a label that he could never shake, all while his real-life drama was something out of a war movie, not a pop song. He was also sued by a producer, Ron Hitchcock, who claimed that he had written the music for Jesse's Girl and that Springfield had stolen it. The case ended up having to get settled out of court, adding another layer of crap, betrayal, and legal drama to his supposed dream come true. And he kept on spiraling down. He was famous, rich, and more miserable than ever. He fell into the classic rock star traps. He'd been brutally honest about his infidelity, sex addiction, and the way he treated people, all fueled by this deep-seated self-hatred. He married his wife, Barbara Porter, in 1984, right at the peak of his fame. He met her while she was working at the studio. But it turned out he was unfaithful constantly. He said he used sex as a drug, a way to numb the dark feelings that was always scratching at the door. He was trying to feel something, to fill the void. It only made him hate himself more. He was still the same 17-year-old kid with that rope and the beam in the backyard, only now he was doing it on magazine covers, living a life that looked perfect but felt like a lie. And for 40 years, he kept that story locked up, the Vietnam story. It wasn't until he sat down to write his autobiography that he decided he just had to get it out there. He said that he had to tell the truth, not for shock value, but because it was just eating away at him. He needed to finally own all of it. The darkness, the hit song, soap opera, the addictions, Vietnam incident. And when the book came out in 2010, it made the headlines. People were definitely taken aback. This was Dr. Noah Drake, the Jesse's Girl guy. How could it be true? But Rick never backed down from it. He's explained it, owned it, processed it, argued that it was a kill or be killed moment. The soldier was an immediate threat to him and his friends. It was war, but it was a war that he was never supposed to be fighting. He was there just to be the entertainment. That 1-second decision in the mud defined his life just as much as his number one hit. He just managed to keep it hidden behind the smile. Smack that subscribe button. Smack the like button. To my subscribers, you rock. Join the family. Thank you so much for watching.